Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Film Frauds, where myself, Matt, and my two co-hosts, Mark
Hello.
and Tyler,
Hello.
provide our completely unprofessional and 100% biased opinions on the movies of today, tomorrow, and yesteryear. And today, we are settling the Prometheus debate once and for all with this one video. Tyler, what is your background with Ridley Scott's magnum opus?
So we're each going to talk about our own background with it. So this movie came out.
Because this is like the three
This
of
is-
us have been friends since early high school, and this has been a huge point of contention with all of us.
Yeah,
a
I'm
long
going to
time.
end up losing. So I saw this movie in theaters when it came out in 2012, and I was young, and I was 13, and I was getting into movies, or I was 13 turning 14, or whatever it was. But I thought this movie sucked when I saw it at 13. I thought it was boring. I thought it was nonsense, and I didn't think anything of it was scary, interesting, all the whole 9 yards. Then, after you guys, I won't spoil what you guys think, but I watched it right when I got into college, so about 3 or 4 years ago, and I thought it was mediocre at best. And I was like, there's some interesting stuff. It looks great, but I didn't really care for it that much. And then I watched it for a third time last night, and I am higher on it than I was, but I still have issues with it, and I don't think those issues are going to go away. But you guys, this is like your baby. So
Yeah.
Matt, Mark.
So
Just
I was
go.
I watched it in theaters as well when I was like 14 or whatever. It was in like I think it came out like eighth, like when I was in middle school or something. And I was a huge fan of Alien and Aliens prior to it, so I was really really excited. So I remember the trailer vividly. Like that trailer is one of the best trailers of all time, and I was so excited to see it. I saw it with my friend and his parents, and I was completely blown away by it. I loved like pretty much every second of it when I saw it in theaters. And since then, I've seen it countless times, and I didn't realize the movie had so much backlash because I wasn't big on to like watching film reviews back then. But like at the time, I was like, this movie is amazing, and it felt very fitting of the aliens world. And yeah, again, I've seen it countless times after, and my opinion stays true that I still love this movie, and I think that it gets very unfair criticisms, but on top of this movie being very influential to me, it also introduced me to one of my good lifelong friends and the man across from me, Mark. Mark, what's your backstory with Prometheus?
Well, when I first saw Prometheus, it was hard to describe because it was like I had gone completely stupid after I watched it. I was like, this is the greatest thing I've ever seen, and it took me like a day or two to process it.
You're sitting in a coma for like 2 days.
I was sitting in a coma, like I was in the chair and I watched it, and it was like, Mark, it's been a day. You got to like eat or something. I'm like, what? But yeah, I watched it, and I'm a very like obsessive person. Like I obsess over things, and so I watched Prometheus and I was obsessed with it. I love the questions it asks. I love the story. That was the story of it all, and I was, looking into like what's happening next. What's Ridley Scott gonna do next? And the sequel was like originally planned to be Paradise Falls. The engineer's home planet. Elizabeth Shaw is gonna, find all the answers. And so now I'll sidetrack a little bit and I'll talk about how I became friends with Matt. So the school that Matt and I went to, it was a private school, and during the day you cannot wear a hat. Okay, you can't wear a hat during the day.
Tyler went
Matt
there too, just
here-
to clarify.
I was also here, but not as cool.
So Matt would wear a hat to school during the morning. So he'd wear it in the morning. He'd get to school. When classes started, he'd take it off. I thought that was the stupidest thing ever. I was like, why would you bring a hat to school if you can't wear it during the day? And he would, put it on at the end of the day and he'd leave. And I'd always look and be like, this kid is so stupid. Okay. I am so much better than you. Never having an interaction with him. And then eventually Tyler became friends with Matt. And I felt so betrayed because Tyler was like my friend. He's the guy I talk to movies about. And
We just talked about Pacific Rim. That's all.
Yeah, we just talked about Pacific Rim. That was like our favorite movie, and or my favorite movie at least. And I think one day after school, Tyler and Matt are talking, or it was Matt and I, or me and Tyler talking. It was.
I think I came to the
Tyler,
table.
You came to the table?
Yeah, because you guys were already sitting.
Okay, so Tyler and I were at the table. We were talking, and I think that we were talking about Prometheus, and I was talking about Paradise Falls. That was the so-called sequel to Prometheus at the time, And then Matt comes up, and in my head I'm thinking, oh, this guy, here he comes. I finally get to meet this idiot. And then it was basically like Matt comes up to me. He's like, "Are you talking about Paradise Falls, the sequel to Prometheus?" And it was like my whole world changed.
Yeah,
I was like,
you're the only other person I knew who loved the movie like I did.
Somebody who gets it, who gets
Yeah.
the genius of this movie. And so that was in 2013, 2014.
Yeah, that was our freshman year. Really right at the end of the freshman year.
Yeah, our entire friendship is based on this film.
Yes.
So suffice to say, I love this film. And it feels so good to have someone who gets it.
Mark, I hated you too before I knew you because back then Tyler's my only friend, and I didn't want to socialize with other people. So when you guys would after school would sit across from each other and you have the skills in your pocket, you'd be eating Skittles while on your Mac. I used to get so many. I was like stealing
drinking
Tyler
Mountain
from
Dew.
me. Who would have thought that we would have been so envious over Tyler?
I know. I feel so special right now. This is the best.
But if we get
and then we became best friends, and then Todd became envious.
Oh yeah.
And then all sophomore year, Mark and I would just roast Tyler, and we walked from Connell back down to Fabian.
And it's still continuing. Yeah.
Yes,
still continuing to this day.
Yeah. It's because of you and Flickster.
Yes.
Oh, God.
But
Yeah.
we get into the discussion of Prometheus. I think it's important to find some common ground first, and I think that I'm going to go on a limb and say that the first half of Prometheus, I think that we all would really like. Do you like the first half of Prometheus, Tyler? Do you think it's
I think Prometheus has like sections of like brilliance. I think there's like 15 minutes sprinkled throughout of this movie that are like genuinely fantastic.
Yeah. But I'm talking about like the build-up specifically.
I would say as soon as they go, because also spoilers again. Like we're just gonna spoil this movie.
Yeah, we're
as soon as spoilers. I think until they go to explore the big ship basically the underground cavern, everything up to that is wonderful, and so I agree with you. I don't know if that's the first hour, but I think
it's farther in the movie than I thought. I'm pretty sure it is like the first hour because I remember looking at the clock while watching the movie, and I'm like, wow, there's only like an hour left of this movie, and most of the action still hadn't happened yet.
Yeah, I think this movie does a wonderful job of building and establishing characters, the ones that are actually like developed. I mean, it's Shaw and it's David. I think of it too. It establishes who they are, their core kind of ideas, and then it kind of puts them against the environment. But I think not just like there's a lot of themes in this movie that I really love, but that's like jumping the gun a little bit. But the first hour, if it's up to that point, is really great.
Do you think it falls apart once they like? Do you think you start having
okay? So we can. So I think this movie is doing a lot. I think it's a blending of a couple different genres, and it's a blending of a couple different ideas that I wish they had kind of stayed and focused on one. And I want to talk about the genres first, because this movie is basically three genres. It's high concept, religious allegory, science fiction. It's a alien type horror movie, and it's an aliens type action movie. And I wanted them to focus on one. I think the movie does the religious allegory, high concept science fiction well. I think it does the horror elements really well. And I think the action parts are kind of what falls to the wayside for me for a little bit. If we're taking it, at least that's how I kind of view the genres. I don't know what you guys think about that. But that was like one of the first things I noticed is feels like it's a movie in kind of like three different acts and three different genres to me. I don't know what you guys thought.
You want to go, Matt?
No, you can go. I've already talked a bit.
I mean, I just got to say that there are some pretty blatant flaws in this film. I am very forgiving of this film. Okay? I can recognize things for what they are, but it's so hard for me to critique this thing. In regards to genre, I didn't really think too hard about it. I think there is a lot going on, but it's not exactly an issue for me. It's a good conglomeration of all three of those things. Matt, go.
I have a quote on genre from David Lindelof himself.
Let's do it. I'm actually
from,
really curious.
Collider. I went through like a whole like black hole of Collider articles about this movie. He says in talking about Prometheus and talking about creating Prometheus with Ridley Scott, he, being Ridley, had always explained Prometheus to me as a marriage between Alien and Blade Runner because he was interested in the ideas of creation and that there were three generations of creation. You have man and his creation, which are synthetic beings and androids and robots. And then you have the next level would be who created man. and so that search for God is, as it were, and then it basically says that you have man's creation, then you have the next level is who created man, and that's like the basis of Prometheus, is the trying to find out why you're created and who created you. So I think I didn't know about the marriage between Blade Runner and Alien, but I can see it a lot more now with like the whole replicant synthetic stuff with David. So it's interesting because I love Blade Runner as well, and now that Lindelof, I read this quote, I think that's like a marriage between Blade Runner and Alien is like a perfect description for Prometheus. And I would say that again, this movie does have problems, mainly with like character interactions. But I would say the first half is pretty brilliant. It's very brilliantly built. Like you have, at least for the core characters, you have Shaw and David and Tom Hardy. Not Tom Hardy. And,
Logan Marshall Green. Who's really
like,
great.
First, you get them on Earth.
Yeah, he is.
You get them on Earth, and you get good build up to that. I would say it was kind of a stupid complaint, but they briefed their team after they've.
No, that was one of my nitpicks. That was I have an entire section because this movie, we should preface, is probably one of the most nitpicked movies of the last 10 years. Everyone, there are little elements of this movie that people. Listen, nitpicks don't bother me to a certain point. Yes, they can often like break immersion in a movie, but I mean sometimes they're so minute that it doesn't really matter. Yeah. That was one of them. Of a nitpick is the fact that these people signed up for a mission, went into cryo sleep, woke up, and they're for like, years. So what's the mission? That's one of the things where it's like it kind of takes you out of the movie for a second. You're like, okay.
It'd be so lame though if they got briefed. Like from a movie perspective, it would have been really lame if they got the briefing before they went to sleep. Like
Well, I would like to address that because I knew about that nitpick going in, and I agreed with the nitpick. But my opinion on it changed actually, because I think one part of that scene is the two co-pilots. They're talking and they're like, oh, what do you think this mission's about? Is it like some sort of like survey mission or something like that? This small conversation within the whole scope of the scene implies that humanity has advanced to a they're capable of reaching many different planets. It's sort of this implication of, oh, it's not exactly a big deal what this mission is, because there's like hundreds of, space geologists and pilots and whatnot. And so my opinion on that, the whole like briefing after you get to the destination 2 years later, I was less critical of that fact. I think, Ridley Scott or David Lindelof was, implying something else, a part of the like sci-fi genre. Should we just address all the nitpicks now to get them out of the way?
So let's just do that now.
All right, so I have 8 because I watched the movie, and they're often ones that I heard when I was watching movie reviews, but I listed them. I have them all in a notebook right here. The first one was, did the crew not know what they signed up for? Was my first one. Why do the scientists take their helmets off immediately after kind of, it's like Earth, but it's cleaner than Earth, but they take it off immediately? Could get infected. That's kind of one of those things you're like, how did Charlie not notice David sticking his finger in a drink when he's like right there and he's like holding it, and you can see Charlie staring at David?
He was drunk. Like he was already pretty.
Yeah, but these are also nitpicks that are like ones that I got really curious about. So I watched some reviews about Prometheus, and these are stuff people complained about. Why did Charlie not immediately tell everyone he was infected? Like how it could also potentially damage Shaw, and we know that they are in love. So it feels like, yes, that's also like he'd do anything for the mission, but it's also he's endangering the person he loves. Let's see. How did the
Wait.
Yes.
Say that nitpick one more time.
Yeah, I didn't really understand that.
So Charlie wakes up after David spikes his drink, and he wakes up and he has a little eye worm thing, and he doesn't tell anyone, but he also just slept with Shaw, the person he loves. So he knows he's infected and something's wrong, but he doesn't tell anyone until he's horribly sick.
Well, he doesn't know. Like he's
how would he know?
But he's also a doctor and a scientist, so he doesn't immediately.
Yeah, but not with like space organisms.
There's a space organism in his eye. I mean,
he doesn't know that.
Yeah, but he blinked. He blinked and it's gone.
Yeah, he blinked. Like he blinked and it's gone. And he can't.
Listen, this is just. And
he's not like he knows that.
We're not arguing about the nitpicks.
There's a difference between nitpicking and grasping at straws.
Okay.
Yes, Mark, thank you.
Okay. How did the Prometheus lose track of Fifield when he becomes a monster? They were tracking him when he's in the ship, and they had trackers on everyone. And then
because he turns to him because his suit got damaged or something. I don't know.
that was just, again, these weren't all mine.
For dramatic effect. That's
Listen,
why.
these are all not mine. I had the first one, the second one, and then like one more at the end. But not a lot of these were ones that I found.
Yeah.
Um,
Do you want to just go into your big ones?
hold on. Well, mine are.
The
I'm just gonna say them all.
Prometheus school of
Why do the
running
why
away.
do the two guys, Fifield and that other guy, get real close to the worm monster when their one characteristic before is that they don't want to be anywhere around where the creepy stuff is, but they're very willing to just kind of go, ooh, like cute monster. That one was one of mine. That was a big one for me because that's like aren't really characters, and their one characteristic is like they're too old for this shit kind of mentality, and yet they adopt. And even in the deleted scenes, they're like sniffing the stuff.
Oh yeah, that deleted scene was that deleted scene. I'm glad it was not in the movie. There's like a rag and he puts like right up to his face.
Yeah, it's like that's not the character. Why did Waylon have to lie about dying to be on the ship? That doesn't ultimately serve any purpose to the narrative, and it's just kind of a reveal.
Well, I mean, maybe because because his daughter doesn't really want him to be alive anymore. Clearly.
Yeah.
So, I think he was doing it because like as soon as she finds out he's alive, he's like, oh, King has a reign, then he dies.
Yeah.
I don't know. She wasn't very supportive.
She knew he was alive.
Well, that's again, that one was not mine, and this is also mine, but also probably the most nitpicked one. Why didn't Sean Vickers run diagonally to the falling ship, even when because Shaw?
Where'd they go to school? Where did they go to school?
Yeah, the Prometheus School of Running Away things. Thank you, Cinema Sins. But it's like one of those things where the ship falls and Shaw rolls. It's 3 times. Like
yeah, and she's out of the way.
And that's
so goofy.
That one's really, and that's one of those things where it's like it's a really intense and well filmed and well shot action scene, and it's legitimately good. And then has that little roll, and it's like, whoa, it doesn't feel like they're in any danger. Those are the 8 nitpicks that I could find in the movie. Yeah. We just want to get them out of the way.
Yeah,
because they're like just harboring over this movie forever. And
it's so funny because like I was looking at reviews, and there's this one YouTuber called Critical Drinker whose whole channel is just based on this movie's objectively bad kind of.
I do not like that channel at all.
It's garbage, and
yeah, it is.
I was watching his video, and he's like, why did they get lost in the thing? It's like, I understand that the movie has a lot of logical problems with it, but when people put no emphasis on the themes of the movie, the fact that this is one of, if not the most beautiful movie of the 2010s from a cinematography standpoint. This movie is absolutely gorgeous, and then you just focus on stupid nitpicks of the movie and then say it's objectively terrible. Like, what kind of video is that? That's garbage. It's nothing.
And the reason,
it's like David Lynch. It's garbage.
The only reason I wrote all those and did the research is because when we ultimately get to our grades and talk about the movie, these are not factors in why I have problems with the movie. They're just like stupid stuff that people just focus on as a criticism when they're really just kind of just like movie goofs. Like, I feel like there's also one we could talk about when they visit the engineer at the end and Shaw's telling everyone, hey, don't take off your helmet. We don't know what Charlie got infected with. And then the next shot is her taking off her helmet. That's not necessarily like, it doesn't immediately like go, oh, the movie's now like a C for me. It doesn't work like that. They're just little points, and it just kind of, it gets annoying when that's the only discourse about this movie is the nitpicks.
At least the movie is consistent in its inconsistencies.
Yeah.
Okay.
There we go.
It's consistent in its themes too, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Should we talk about, Matt, because Matt, we follow each other on Letterboxd, and I read your review for this. Should we talk about basically this movie is an entire religious allegory? Just, this is like almost all the character decisions are, or the main ones at least, are kind of, you can kind of spin in some way to be kind of like a take on religion itself.
Yeah.
And that's also one of my favorite parts about this movie, but I feel like we should probably talk about that.
So you're talking about sort of like David being a Prometheus type character in a way. Yeah. We can go into that. So I want to talk about the characters, like something like that. And first of all, I think Elizabeth Shaw is one of the best characters in sci-fi film in general. I think she's great.
Yes, I agree.
We'll get to Alien Covenant soon, but this is going to be
man, I can't wait.
I think that the movie, so I don't know if you did any research about like what sort of religious allegory does she represent, Tyler?
Well, this movie, okay, so this our whole Prometheus review is gonna be very unstructured.
Yeah, I feel like we should talk about. I like your idea of talking about the themes, but I feel like character and theme are really.
So I can't figure out if this movie is pro-religion or anti-religion. And the only reason why I can argue for anti-religion, and this might touch into the deleted scenes, is all the characters are finding some sort of kind of faith, their own belief in religion, their own search for kind of an afterlife, of God. You can look at David as kind of being a creationist, a godlike figure, while Shaw's searching for her purpose. Same with Charlie. Again, those are probably the only three defined characters who search for that. You could look at someone like Fifield and the other guy, that comedic actor, who when they see a proof of an alien being, they haul it the other way. You can kind of view them as a representation of kind of what's called atheism, rejecting belief and rejecting a god. But you
could see like Idris Elba as being some sort of like guardian, or protector in a way.
There's a lot of like kind of little stuff like that, but there's also this really weird coldness to religion, where basically all of these characters who search for faith and search for a purpose are coldly killed off and like destroyed by their creator. And this is why I don't like that deleted scene where the engineer talks, because I love how we are faced with our God in the movie, and he just executes us all angrily and without mercy, beats an old man to death, like rips off a head. I fucking love that. I was so surprised at how much I enjoyed just like the cold distaste it had towards religion, despite being a somewhat optimistic search for kind of a purpose. I don't know what you guys thought about that.
I agree and disagree.
Okay.
I agree and disagree as well.
Going to the deleted scene, I think it's great and I think it's terrible at the same time.
Well, wait, hold on.
Yeah.
Should we just like fully lay out the scene? The deleted scene for
so basically when they discover, Wayland, David, and the surviving crew members find the engineer, and they open the thing, and then Wayland says, I'm hoping, he's like, the engineer's like, why are you here? And he's like, I'm trying to find immortality. I only have a couple days left to live. And this is my creation. We're both gods in one way. So we're sort of equals. And then the engineer responds by ripping off David's head off and killing Wayland with it. And I think the scene is brilliant in some ways, but I feel like the line of I'm a god like you is a little too on the nose. But I love how he says, this is my creation, and the engineer just has such little care for for it. They just rips his head off. Like it was so cold, and like what you said about how it sort of criticizes religion in a way. It's like this guy has worked so hard to try to appease God, and this God just does not care, and he's angry at him. So I like that, but I do think his exposition before that is a little heavy-handed. My only apprehension to say that the movie is critical towards religion is with Shaw's character, because it shows. I feel like her character is really interesting, because I feel like a lot of sci-fi is sort of used to disprove religion in a way, whereas Shaw's character sort of uses her knowledge and new scientific discoveries to help her better understand her religion. So I thought that, and then she ends up surviving in the end. And at the time they weren't going to plan on murdering her off screen. So I think that
we all have problems with Alien Covenant. We all hate that movie.
So I think that it's cynical and cold in one way, but I also feel like Wayland isn't a good representation, because he's a very prideful man at the same time. Like he has a god complex as well, whereas Shaw is just very smart woman trying to better understand herself and what she believes in. So I that'd be my apprehension, because I don't think that what happens to Wayland is supposed to be like a metaphor for like an allegory for all of us, because I think that he's an exceptionally bad person. I don't know, Mark, do you want to comment?
Yeah, Mark, what do you think? Because I really can't figure this out.
Let me I like what you just said, Tyler, about how it's like the cold ruthlessness of the engineer, an indifferent god to his creation.
Yeah.
Seeing it in that light, like I never thought about it that way. That's a very, very good point. Makes me warm up to that scene a little bit more. But I do really like the scene where the engineer speaks, because I think like the David Lindelof actually wrote the dialogue, like when the engineer speaks, as well as David in the engineer's language. And he's like, David says like, this man has come here because he believes you can give him more life or something like that.
Yeah.
And then the engineer's like, what makes you think you are worthy, or something
yeah.
along those lines. And I just love that. You
Mhm.
know, it's like, how dare you? Like, he's
Yeah.
basically like, he's walked into Eden and is begging God for life. And it's just, you know, it's like, get the hell out of my face.
I feel like that ties into like the coldness of it, because we watch all
Yeah,
these
I mean,
characters.
yeah.
Like there's themes of like colonialism where these characters basically like adventure to a new land that's already inhabited, that's
Yeah.
kind of dangerous to them, and they kind of try to imbue their own will and sense of kind of culture and life
Manifest
onto it.
destiny or something.
Yeah, and then that world basically just utterly rejects them in every single capacity. But
Yeah.
but we have a movie that presents it so kind of like religious, and it searches for all this kind of purpose in life, only for them to find that purpose and for it to be incredibly indifferent to it, with the
Yeah.
purpose of the god, spoilers at the end, who wanted to wipe out their creation, kind of like alluding to something like Noah's Ark. And it just, that means I don't know if I can figure out what Ridley Scott and Lindelof's purpose was. Were they trying to go, hey, look, view this optimism? Even like in like even at the end, Shaw is like like we shouldn't have come here, like this was a mistake, and then she's like imbued with a new sense of purpose. So is this movie for religion or against religion? I don't
think
know.
I think I have a case for it. I think it's pro religion.
Okay.
I'd say it's pro religion as well.
Okay.
Because if anything, Shaw's faith is strengthened in this film. You know, it's like we've met our creators now. Like, what does your God say about that? And you know, they created us. And then she's like, well, who created them? You know,
Yeah.
she's still, you know, and the whole essence of faith is holding to a belief in the face of great adversity. And there's a lot of adversity in this film, and Shaw comes out, more faithful than
That's
before
a good
it.
point.
And it's
Because you know what they say, anyone with a crisis of faith never had much faith to begin with.
Yeah.
Swing it back to cavalry.
Yeah. So I think if anything, it's leaning more towards the direction of pro religion, but a case can be made for or against.
Yeah, I agree with Mark. I think that the characters who do get their comeuppance are sort of not representative of the best of people. Like the cynical guys, like they're not, like the cynical guys get killed. Wayland gets killed. But despite all this hardship, Shaw still continues on to try to find her creators. And we're also assuming that like this one engineer or this group of engineers that we found on the planet represent like the beliefs of all the engineers that exist in the galaxy. So, and Lindelof has said that he wrote Prometheus knowing that, like, they wrote Prometheus knowing that there would be a lot of unanswered questions that they wanted to answer in another movie. So I feel like it's kind of hard to decide, but based on the ending and Shaw's arc, I would say that it is very skeptically pro religion.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like, again, I was like 50-50 because
Yeah.
throughout this movie, I'm like, yeah, this movie's very pro-religion. You know, I thought it was kind of like facing adversity, like you guys said, but then you had the scene with the engineer, and then that completely threw me off. It's like you face your God, and he just goes like, your ants below me.
Yeah.
Crush, and you're just like, oh my God, this is great. That's
Yeah.
probably my favorite part about this movie, is at least my internal debate between pro-religion, anti-religion. I kind of really dug it, and it was not something I don't think at 13 years old, when I was an idiot, I would have ever been able to pick up on.
But the movie's bad because they touched the snake.
Yeah, it's bad because they took their helmets off. Yeah, it's a lot. Is this the prettiest looking movie of the 2010s?
I mean, Arrival's up
man.
there. Arrival's up there.
Arrival's up there.
I don't know. I mean, Arrival's really good looking, but
this has
Prometheus,
like some
that
shots.
ship is gorgeous. It's like it's somehow fantastical, also very realistic.
This movie has like a wonderful sense of scale, because
Yes.
you're treated to like this ship, and you're like, this ship is giant, and then it flies down, and then you get that long shot when it lands, and the sculptures and the pyramids are just like 6 times larger than that, and it puts you really into perspective how small these people are. I thought that was wonderful. I thought the score was amazing. That kind of
the
like
planet feels really well written. Oh, the score is amazing. That's
Yeah.
part of the optimistic side, because that main theme has like when it plays at the end, plays at the beginning and the end, and it does have that little like there's like some like sort of like optimism I at least detected in the score.
Would you like to know how that score was created?
Yes.
This is not part of our guessing game section, but I was actually really curious about that. Sorry, Matt. It's basically they wrote a piece, the composer, then they had the piece played backwards, and then they digitally played it forward. So it's like this kind of uncomfortable, eerie sense. But
Yeah.
that's a piece played backwards and artificially altered to be forward. Artificially altered things backwards, creation, assembly. Like, look at that! Oh my god! Whoa!
Boom, boom, boom.
My brain.
In this movie.
Yeah.
No, I think the score, because that score comes up in the sense of awe. You get that at the beginning when they land on the planet, when you first see the ship flying across space, and then when David ultimately like learns about the engineers and their plan to go to Earth, and he's like playing with everything and kind of it's like he's like one of the gods, like a part of them, and that like optimistic score is playing. I was really kind of like taken aback by some of those scenes.
Yeah. Did you guys see that I'm sure you did, but the scene where Wayland does that TED Talk in like the 2020s?
I've saw it, but it's been a long time.
I don't know what you're talking about. What are you talking about?
Oh, well, there was a, it wasn't intended for the film, but it was like Guy Pearce, not an old man makeup. He films like a TED Talk that takes place in like 2024, and it's like him in this gigantic arena.
Yeah.
And it's him like talking about, the advancement of the human race, and like, he's talking about the Titan Prometheus and how he stole fire from the gods, and then he makes allegory like, we're the gods now.
Oh, cool.
Yeah,
it was like, I mean, again, it's something outside of the film, so it makes things a little bit out of left field in regards to his character in the final scene, I guess. But it's a really cool talk that Wayland gives, and so it makes sense. Like David is like such a good character.
You gotta talk
I
about
love
David.
everything.
Yeah, we gotta talk about David.
But like, it makes so much sense, like his ambitions and what he was striving for in this film, and it's because like his creator was this god complex sort of dude, and it's just perfectly replicated in David. And I want to talk, before I get into David, I want to talk about like specifically why I love this film so much. And it's just this at its core, the story. I love the concept, like the opening shots, are beautiful, or like with the engineer drinks the liquid and like life is born. And then you get the series of cave paintings, when they find like the patterns.
Yep.
This is at a time like when I first saw this film, I was like really getting into space and astronomy. Yep. And I was like, just the concept of like something like this even existing on this planet. Like I was like, oh man, because in today's day and age, everything's demystified. There's no more mystery. There's no more exploration.
Yep.
And this sort of gives you a sense of wonder and awe. Like, what the heck? Really makes you think.
It's crazy because when you think of sci-fi, you think of either like space, Someone Space Odyssey, cynical, the galaxy is huge and you're never gonna be able to comprehend all of it, or fantasy Star Wars, good guys versus bad guys. But this movie somehow balances both the cynical and like the hopeful sides of science. And I think that doesn't get appreciated enough. But I'm sorry, you can continue.
It'd be like, it's like discovering another wonder of the world or something. Because I think like in the Parthenon in Athens, there was a gigantic statue of like Athena or something, and it like disappeared from history. That's like, that'd be like someone like today, like saying like, oh, we found it in an unmarked tomb in Egypt or something. It'd be like that sense of wonder and awe. It's like, oh my God, it was here the whole time.
Yeah.
So you're saying this movie like hit you at the perfect time in your life.
It hit me at the perfect time. I mean, even now it still hits me. I'm just like, oh, this is so cool. And then just the concept of the engineers itself, just this whole race of beings that created us, and then their flip on their opinion towards us, and then you're introduced to this highbrow concept that just totally blew my socks off, and then later on it's revealed, oh my God, we're on a military planet, and they're heading back to Earth to destroy us. It was like, holy crap.
Yeah.
It was just like, I just love it. This is like one of my favorite, like, not exactly a screenplay, but a story. This is like one of my favorite stories ever.
Yeah. It's perfect. It perfectly combines cynical and optimistic themes of religion and finding God just perfectly. But do you guys want to go into David now?
Yeah. This is also, this is okay. This is a part complaint I have about the movie, and where I feel like it's kind of like scope and grandness. I wish they would have kind of like stepped back and kind of like tried to focus on two things. I think Shaw and I think David are wonderful characters. I'll preface it. I think they're wonderful characters, but I think that the movie would have almost benefited if the movie focused on one of them entirely, because I think their stories are both very fascinating. Shaw's search for kind of a meaning and kind of a purpose and finding our creators is really great in this kind of grand scope. And then you place her against an environment that is, as I've said before, is kind of like this cold and uncruel and uncaring world. Wonderful. But then also on David's perspective, you have this like Matt said, like he's raised by this kind of god complex kind of figure. He's a robot created by people who constantly deals with his makers, who constantly belittle him, who has this a curious kind of nature inside, and ultimately plays a god complex to it. I would have loved an entire movie focused about him. And I feel like
Alien Covenant.
Alien Covenant?
Yeah, Alien Covenant. I forgot. Yeah, I'll do the.
That's your answer.
Do you really want it now?
Oh God. Yeah, and I feel like meshing them together at times. They were like, I want more David, and then David's gone, or I want more Shaw, and Shaw's gone. I don't know if they found that balance for me that I wanted, and that's again, that's not. That's you guys. That's an entirely personal like.
Yeah, I understand that.
It's like one of
that's what you call a valid criticism of the movie.
Yeah. That's not like they took
something rare on this
off.
channel.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
know. Yeah, so that's basically like one of my kind of major complaints is mainly like 3. I think outside of David and Shaw, there's a complete like lack of characters, which before like our final deleted scene we haven't touched on is the characterization of Idris Elba and establishing Vickers more. Which would have been.
Why was that not in the movie?
I don't know, because the movie's
not that
long.
It's literally 2 hours and 2 minutes long. That scene was 4 minutes.
That would have solved a lot of my issues, because all of a sudden now it's like, great, we just had like history with Idris Elba's character.
Yeah, it makes the sacrifice at the end more understandable.
Yeah. But they cut it. And so we're just talking about the theatrical release. And I think there's a glaring lack of characters, because the movie tries to do the whole alien thing. Like Ridley Scott's very much like grabbing back into his own bag of kind of doing like, oh, look, they're each their own quirky things, but none of them are really characters. And I think I have an issue with that. The blending of genres. I think the action side like is so uninteresting compared to the high concept religious allegory and the wonderfully done space horror, kind of like Cronenberg body horror at times too.
Yeah.
And then I feel like the mix of the David and Shaw, I wanted like a little bit more of each, and I don't know if they got that perfect mix. But those are like my 3 major complaints about the movie.
Yeah.
Well, just talking about David and Shaw, I think like you said you wanted like either focus on one or the other.
Yeah.
I think that they're perfect for this film, because it's almost like it's pretty much almost like yin and yang. Like they're working against each other, but they need each other.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Right. Like David. Or Shaw needs David to get to the next planet, and David needs Shaw because there's no other way he's going to escape. Like stuff like that. Like it just there's these 2 unrelenting forces of, I guess, good and evil that need each other. They complete each other.
Because Shaw is the optimist of the
right.
2, and David is the cynical one. And there's that great scene where he's poisoning not Tom Hardy, and he's like, oh, and I forget what built up to it, but then Michael Fassbender's like, oh, why did you guys make me? And he goes, we made you because we could. And he goes, imagine how disappointing that answer would be when you meet your creators. And that's so brilliant. I love that line so much. That just shows how sort of that justifies his cynicism, David's cynicism, and like how coldly he treats humans, because he knows that his existence has no meaning other than they made me because they wanted to, because they had the ability to. And going back to, and then also when Weyland-Yutani, who meets his creator, he's received with even more cold cynicism. He gets like he presents it to his greatest creation, and then his god just rips his head off and doesn't care. Man, David is so fascinating. I don't know if you guys want to talk about that at all.
And Michael Fassbender, what a performance!
Yeah, he's great. I feel like we should talk about how they establish his entire character in 5 minutes in the opening scene.
It's perfect. Yeah.
Yeah, you learn everything. Well, one, we see him trying to like fix up an appearance, watching films, and then viewing dreams.
Yeah.
Everything you need to know about him is right there, and it's wonderful. He cares. He's and like you view your idea of a synthetic robot is not one that cares about appearance, is not one that is curious, and is not one that tries to kind of learn more about kind of culture and life and how people interact, because you expect him to learn the languages like he does, like we see him. But the fact that he's watching a movie and mimicking the lines and learning and like peering, like what's it called? When you're kind of invasive, like being invasive into Shaw's dreams is really intriguing.
Peeping.
Yeah, it's really like it puts you into like it's like one of the drawing elements of the movie. You're like, I want to see the entire movie about this freaky robot. I don't know what you guys thought.
I don't agree with you saying that he's different because he's curious. Like I could think of like the the robot from Space Odyssey, like the
HAL 9000.
The HAL 9000. Like
Yeah.
I can think of of robots that are curious and they rebel against their creators. But I think what makes David interesting is that Wayland instilled upon him the ability to create and to think freely.
Yep.
I think that's what separates him from other robots or androids in sci-fi, and the fact that he, in response to the fact that his god created him out of his own ego, and then now David feels like he needs to create his own and also learn more about the gods of his god. I don't know. I found that stuff to be what separates David from like another generic android character.
Yeah, I like he has this sort of sense to prove his existence. I think his
that's a good way of putting it.
Yeah.
Yeah, his goal is just like, conquer the creators of my creator. Like that's sort of like what his goal is. And talking about Alien Covenant, one and
only God is what he wants to be.
Yeah. It makes sense for his motivations where in Alien Covenant, when he drops the super weapon on Paradise, and he's like, I mean, I hate that scene, but it makes sense because he's like, he quotes Ozymandias, look on my works, ye mighty in despair. Just him, he's like, get fucked.
Yeah.
It would be cool if there was a whole movie that built up to that scene, but showing it as a flashback.
Well, you know what? Let's talk about that later because
we'll get to Alien Covenant.
The concept of David, I just think it's so brilliantly done. When I was watching it, today, was the comparison between the replicants and David, and Ridley Scott did both, and I just thought the story of the replicants was incredible and a great take on sort of androids, I guess, but David, I just
like tears.
The whole concept of him. Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. Right.
Good job.
Thank you for that dramatic enactment. So yeah, I just think what they did with David's character was just magnificent.
And Fassbender's performance, he manages to somehow be very robotic, while also there's
you sense that it's sinister.
Yes, they're very sinister.
Yeah.
He's always scheming. There's this because he is not fully android because androids in typical sci-fi, they don't have the ability to create or think freely like David does. You just get he's stuck between two different types of people. He's not fully robot, he's not fully human. He's just in the middle, and there's something so off. And he knows that it's off, and it's God.
Well, that's why one of my favorite scenes in the movie is, I said before, is when he discovers the engineer's plan and discovers the live one. And because it's that sense of when he views it, it's almost like he is kind of joining the gods. He now has a power above the people who created him because he knows about the plan and the purpose of his gods to wipe them out. And it's just wonderful.
Before that, when the map comes up and he's like the master of the universe.
Yeah.
And then he holds Earth in his hand.
Yeah. It's very on the nose, but it fits. It's like one of those things where it's I get exactly what you're going for, and it works. It just works perfectly. I think that's ultimately one of my favorite. You guys mentioned the line. It's probably the best line in the movie. How disappointed would you be if your gods gave you that answer? It's just, it captures everything about the movie. But I think my favorite kind of performance by Michael Fassbender in this movie is that one where it's just this look of awe and kind of I'm one of you guys now. Kind of I have my power. And it's just lovely. He's definitely the best part of this movie. He might not be he's definitely not the best performance. Noomi Rapace, I think.
Rapace
crushes it.
She's great.
Kills it.
We got to talk about the C-section scene.
Oh my God.
That was
That has to be one of the greatest suspense scenes of at least modern cinema.
yeah.
Like every time I
it's-
watch that scene, it's just horrific.
It's so horrifying. You know, it's
Yeah.
like you're 3 months pregnant, and then you see the scan, the
Oh,
ultrasound, and it's like, holy shit,
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
is that?
It's
And
but there's still that moment right before it pulls it out. You're like, oh, it's it might not be what I think it is, and then like you
Then
see
you-
like the sack, and you're just like, oh. But that's what I was talking about, where the Cronenberg space horror is the
Yeah.
best part of the movie to me, and that's probably there's this wonderful 15-minute sequence, and when I was talking about earlier, the 15-minute sequence where it's Shaw. David kind of reveals himself to Shaw, she sedates him. He figures out the plan of the engineers, and then she has the C-section. I think that's like the best 15 minutes.
Because there's so many things going on at the same time. It's brilliant.
I don't know what
But
you guys thought.
I want to talk about like the C-section scene to begin, just in general, because it's not like an alien is in the halls kind of scene, like what another alien movie would do. It's like the point of tension is something's inside her and she doesn't know what it is, and when she gets, and then like, because like when you think of like sort of doctor room horror, you think of like the cold machines and everything, people operating on you, and I love how everything's moving so slowly. Like that tube she's on is moving so slowly as she's trying to get this thing out of her, and it's like that robotic voice, and you just think of like being in a doctor's office, and it's so brilliant. And there's like that scene where like they're doing the cut, and then you see like the stomach rise as like the thing inside her just squirming. Like Ridley Scott directed that scene magnificently. He is basically perfect, and I was, again, even knowing what happens, I was on like the edge of my seat during that whole scene.
You feel like it's inside of you.
Yes.
Yeah, it's horrifying. No, I don't have to get squeamish, but that's like, I sit like 10 feet away from my TV, but when I knew it was happening and it starts to cut, I like stood up and was like pacing around, like still watching the TV, like, and they move it out, and I was like, oh, it's like, oh God. There's that wonderful shot after where it like bursts, and it's like not a prosthetic, but it's an actual kind of like design where the thing starts freaking out.
Yeah, it's a real prop.
Yeah, and it's like,
which in Alien Covenant they don't do, and everything looks terrible. But we'll get to that.
We'll get to Alien Covenant.
It's coming, folks.
But there's like where you look at her face, and the thing starts freaking out and like making noises, and she just looks horrified, like she just wants to kill it. It's amazing. But there's also like, what works about that scene is, like you said, it's not the monster in the halls, which they do in Alien Covenant, which we'll get to. But it's like the fact that it's inside of you. And then like it's the reveal and the knowledge.
And no one is helping you. Like the fact that no one on the crew, you're literally on your own as well, also adds to the horror.
They actually try to sedate her and put her in cryosleep again, which would have killed her.
Yeah.
It's wonderful. It's probably the best sequence in the movie on its technical, directing, kind of like sound design, everything.
Acting. Amy Rapace kills it in that scene.
I don't know, like, is that probably the best scene in the movie? Like, do you want to go real quick into Hallmark scenes?
We can go to Hallmark scenes. Because I would say that probably either that or David holding Earth in his hand when he has like the whole galactic thing is playing around him. I think those scenes are both brilliant. But although all of the C-section scene doesn't play off the themes that I love about Prometheus, I think that like as if you just like the scenes as they are, I'd say that is a masterpiece in horror and tension. Is probably has to be one of the best horror scenes in a movie in recent modern cinema.
I'll go.
We're waiting for you.
It's now my turn to speak.
Sorry, I'm fidgeting over here.
Oh my God.
So as you said, the scene where David's holding Earth in his hands, love it. I love basically the first 10 minutes, or 15 minutes, just so much. Just the whole opening shots, barren Earth except for some water, the engineer sacrificing himself, and then Shaw and not Tom Hardy finding the mural with the pointing towards the star system. That's one, and then or two now, and third, the engineer waking up. Fourth was the scene where Fifield and the biologist guy, the biologist, you know, that accent. They find all the dead bodies, and they're like, their chests are burst open, you know, or whatever. I thought that, you know, that specific part of that scene I love.
I'm second, my phone's ringing.
Hold on, Matt's phone's ringing.
Yep. And we're back. Thank you, Matt.
Technical difficulties.
So repeating what I said, the fourth hallmark moment for me was when Fifield and the biologist guy, they stumbled upon the stacked bodies of the engineers that clearly they were infected and their chests had burst open. I love that scene. And there was one other one. Oh, I can't remember. I should have written it down. Didn't write it down.
You didn't prepare anything.
The whole movie is a hallmark scene. When the engineer gets killed by the big tentacle thing.
Right. Okay. The big.
Yeah, he's pressing up against the door, and it's like grabbing his head, and then it shoots the thing down his throat. Ugh.
Yeah. Matt, you already said the.
Yeah, so you can go.
I would say it's probably the David holding the world in his hands, but I also want to really throw out the kind of like the Shaw and David, like David reveals all his cards, where he's just like, I peered into your dreams, and that's like the real kind of like. It's kind of like that ties into the themes more, where he's like revealing his God complex to Shaw, where he's like, I have control over you. We're going to put you in cryo sleep. I command you, basically. I think that's like.
Sounds like no.
Yeah, it's just like,
don't tell me what to do.
I think that's the best interaction in the movie. Yeah. But again, that's like the three best scenes in the movie are all within 15 minutes. Like, it's like a 15-minute sequence that's edge of your seat. Every like aspect of it is just wonderful. And I like that. Again, they're different scenes, but if I could nominate one, it's that 15 minutes. You guys have any low points, scenes that kind of stood out?
The one that's, I mean, it's the steak scene. There are good moments in that scene. Like the acting from the comedian guy is brilliant. It's so good. Like when he's like, cut it off. Like you feel his pain in that moment, and this you feel like the horror of the unknown, sort of Lovecraftian in a way, where it's like this crazy creature is just trying to kill you, and you don't know what to do. And so there are good moments in that scene, but yeah, it's one of those just like we need people to get to be dead right now, so let's just do it. But again, it doesn't subtract. Like I give this movie 5 stars. I don't think that the movie really. I don't think this really subtracts from the movie at all.
I would say it's the Fifield monster attack, and this is where I really don't like the action of the movie. I think like the giant sandstorm, it's like 3 minutes, but it doesn't really serve any.
Ion storm. Wait, no, it's sandstorm. I'm thinking of
static storm or whatever.
But the thing is, though, in that scene, there's like giant pieces of like metal and stuff flying, which would theoretically shred a person apart. That's a little nitpick. I didn't write that one down, but that was something I noticed. Like they'd be torn apart.
They got the suits on.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I was thinking when Shaw gets blown away, like I was like, how did her helmet not just crack?
Yeah. It's just like one of those things you watch and you're like, oh, to be dead. But I think legitimately, like the Fifield, like you said, it feels like, oh my God, we're in an alien movie. We need people to die. Like the fact that we are now an hour and 20 minutes into the movie, and people are still like kicking. It's like, it's just like, it feels like very unnecessary. Like we got the horror of the thing, like melting his face. Like that's horrifying enough. I don't really need to see like a Fifield monster punching a guy's head in and stomping on his chest and blood spurting everywhere. It was just like, it felt really superfluous to me and kind of like betraying what the movie was going for. And that's kind of like when the engineering, they're fighting at the end, and I don't know, like all the action stuff really took me out of the movie because everything else is done really well.
Yeah. I would say, I think it's supposed to show what Tom Hardy would have been if he hadn't gotten flamethrowered to death.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, I think it's okay for sort of fear of the unknown alien kind of horror. Like, this guy that you knew is now just this catatonic monster that's just going to murder for no reason.
Why was he like all crumbled up at the beginning? Why was that like?
Because it's scary.
Yeah, for effect, idiot.
Dude, what if he tripped on a rock and just
because he's a half alien, half human doesn't mean he doesn't appreciate theatricality.
That's a good point. Yeah.
God.
Did you see his hair?
You knew it was a movie.
Yeah.
It's gonna be so cool when I like unfold on these guys. It's gonna be so spooked.
Mark, do you have a? Oh, wait.
Plot hole solves.
Yeah, we got it.
Yeah.
We forgot. This isn't our low points. This is called Mark's Sleepy Time.
Oh.
Yeah, we messed up. We failed.
Gotta record the whole thing over
We
again.
gotta do it again.
Yeah.
But wait, but it actually works perfectly because Mark's about to give his sleepy time moment, where our sleepy time moments are basically our low points. Because Mark falls asleep when he watches movies sometimes, and then wakes up and then gives him 4 stars, and then keeps on trucking. So Mark,
I'm the next Roger Ebert. What do you want me?
yeah.
What do you want from me?
Mark, what's your sleepy time moment?
I love this film so much, but the one scene that I wasn't like 100% on was agreeing with you, Tyler. Shocker. Was the scene where Fifield's like, because his legs come over, he's just like, I'm crazy, time to die. So yeah, that's the part where I was just, I was passed out, sleeping like a baby, and then I woke up and I went,
You're like, oh yes.
yeah.
Guess what? Guess what Roger Ebert gave Prometheus?
Oh no! Wait, that was gonna be part of my.
Oh man!
Wait, what did he give it? Go for it. Just say it.
4 stars.
He gave Prometheus 4 stars.
What?
Yeah.
That was so loud. I'm sorry. Are you serious?
I have to edit that.
No,
now.
yeah. I didn't even know. I just googled it because I was thinking of it.
It's a really wonderful review. I read it before
yeah.
this. It's really he praises everything about the movie.
So YouTube is wrong.
No.
Cynical drinker, you're a hack.
Yeah.
Critical Drinker's a hack. All
Roger
those
Ebert,
objectivist people were like, Last Jedi sucks. You suck.
Yeah, like Mark said in one of our other reviews, Roger Ebert is the best when he proves me right.
Yes,
exactly.
Go read his Blue Velvet review. Go read his A Clockwork Orange review.
Go read
and then come back.
his Spider-Man review.
So Roger Ebert, you suck because you don't agree with my opinion.
No, he's great. Except
do you guys have any final other points? What do you guys think about kind of I hate to use this term because it sounds really negative, but it's not as negative, but it's kind of like sequel baiting, and I put that in air quotes, where it's the movie purposely leaves a lot of things unanswered with the knowledge they're going to try to answer it, and I put again try to answer it. But it also it brings me back, and this is going to be our terrible comparison of the day, but I hate Avengers Age of Ultron because that movie is very artificial because all it does is try to act as the bridge between a previous generation of Marvel movies and the new ones. There's entire sections of that movie dedicated to asking questions that are going to be answered. And I feel like this movie does that at times. I feel like it purposely leaves things vague, knowing that they're going to get another movie, which isn't necessarily anything wrong, but I wish we would have I wish there was 1 or 2 kind of more concrete answers. If you think about the mural of the aliens, the purpose
that never has any payoff.
The whole purpose of that is for the audience to go, what is that? We know what that is. That's an alien. I wonder how they're going to bring that back.
Yeah.
No, I think it's more like a, hey, remember this thing?
Yeah.
This is an alien.
It's funny because the original script was by a guy named John Spites.
Really did good research.
It was originally going to be called Alien Passengers, and it was going to be a direct tie-in to Alien until they gave the script to Damon Lindelof, and he's like, "I want to make this better." And so it was originally just a Prometheus. It was originally just going to be a soulless Alien prequel, and then Damon Lindelof said that he wrote the movie knowing that people would be frustrated with it, and he said that if there is a sequel, there's a sequel, and if there's not, that he thinks that there was enough in it to satisfy people.
I do.
But
I do think there's enough.
And it's also the lack of answers, I think, sort of also kind of fits with the themes because none of us know what happens after we die, and it sort of fits with that. It's Shaw is still looking, but we don't know if she'll find it or not, and it would be kind of weird if we had. I know there's more than just this one mystery, but if it did have an answer with who the real God was, then it wouldn't be as relatable to us right now.
Yeah. It was the question changed from who created us to why do they want to destroy us?
Yeah. Again, that's not necessarily. I don't have a ton of issue with it, but if you think of the ending scene with the proto xenomorph, the purpose of that isn't to necessarily oh, what is that? It's kind of go maybe we'll find out about it because it's the end. It's basically the stinger of the movie. It's the final after our main characters leave and establish their mission for the next movie. You get that kind of final stinger, and that it's again, it's nothing it's
probably really stung. It really made me go on
Look-
theory websites and all that crap.
No, it falls more under like the nitpick category for me. But that was just
Yeah.
something I was curious if what you guys thought about it, since you guys are such like adamant supporters of this movie.
Yeah. I think I kind of gave my answer already. I don't know, Mark, if you felt unsatisfied at all.
On the final scene or just overall?
Just like general, just like, hey, the movie posed a lot of questions. Like, maybe I should rephrase this question: does this movie slightly disappoint now, knowing we don't get any answers with Alien Covenant? Is it just like one of those things where you just like you watch it and you're like, I know we're not gonna get any answers. Like, it doesn't necessarily for me, but there's a point where I was like, man, I wish I really would have seen what happened like to this.
Well, I think for me, I think it's just a preference for me, is I sort of like the mystery box bullshit, J.J. Abrams.
Yep.
I'm going to sidetrack a little bit. Like, I love The Force Awakens. I get, New Hope remake. Yeah, okay, cool. But it asks a lot of questions. There's room to think about the film. What I don't like, when a film answers every single question it poses, you leave the theater and then you sort of forget about it.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
Unless it's like super amazing, but like this film gives you room to think, but there's enough answered where like your belly's still full.
Yeah. If you look at like the best sci-fi movies of all time, like the Criterion level sci-fi movies, like they don't have satisfying answers really to anything.
Yeah.
It's sort of just a lot of nebulous, bringing up questions and then not really fully answering them. But that's the point. That's supposed to make you think.
Yeah.
Well, that's that I guess the whole point was like, I'm gonna probably argue against myself here, but like one of my recent movies I've seen that I love that doesn't really answer a lot of questions is Burning.
Yeah.
Burning poses a lot of things that never answers any of them and kind of ends the movie. But I guess my argument was the movie poses questions that aren't necessarily philosophical questions, but rather franchise questions. Where did the engineers come that are then never answered? Because there's a difference between like scenes in Burning that are left to the implication of what was the purpose of this, or will we ever find an answer to that? But for Prometheus, I feel like the difference is at times is these are questions that are like, it's the questions that are the stingers to Marvel movies. Like, what is that? Like, remember at the end of Avengers, the first one, where you see the first reveal of Thanos and you go, oh my God, I can't wait to see more of him. That's not a philosophical question. That's here's what's coming next.
Yeah.
And I feel like
I agree. I would, now that you put it in that light, I would agree. I understand your point a lot more. It would have been so weird if, can you imagine if this movie was called Prometheus, but they didn't advertise it as an Alien prequel. Yeah. And you're just watching the movie and you get like the glimpse of like the alien queen engraved on the rock. Yeah. And that was like the only like sort of indication that it was an alien prequel, and it kind of like blew everyone away. Like, oh, what, this movie is actually an alien prequel? Yeah. I wonder if people will be so nitpicky of all the little things.
Yeah. I think us, like, as American audiences, we're just so conditioned to have everything in terms of like, Hollywood blockbusters to everything be wrapped up in a nice little bow, because all these
Marvel movie syndrome.
Well, again, it stems right before even the Marvel movies, though the Marvel movies have sort of really popularized it. But like, I've read a few like books on screenwriting and just story and all that stuff, and they all like, they treat film as if there's like this super rigid structure to it. You have to have an act 1 and act 3 and act 1, act 2, act 3.
Whoa.
At the end of act 1.
Wow,
at the end of act 1. No, let me keep going. And at the end of act 1, you have to have like an inciting incident. At the end of act 2, like act 2 has to be like 90 minutes. Act 3 has to be only 30 minutes. And you have to answer all these questions, and your characters have to do this and that. And it's like, really, when it comes to film, there's no formula to it. There shouldn't be a formula, but like, this is what American audiences like for some reason, or we're conditioned for it. And, if you go look at, some foreign films, the structure can be totally different. And it's just, let's talk about, let's be a little more contemporary right now. This whole show about the big bad nurse Ratched from One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, she's getting a prequel show. And let me talk about that for a second. Nurse Ratched in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, she's evil because she represents the asylum system and how it's a corrupt system. But all of a sudden now with this new TV show, she's this criminal mastermind, and she like has to have this crazy backstory, and she's out to like punish people. It just totally undermines,
Mark, everything in the movie has to be explained
Yeah,
This
that's
minute
that's.
detail you don't understand.
We have to explain
We'd have to
everything.
explain
There's no
everything.
mystery. Leave things up to questioning. We don't have to have all the answers. It's so frustrating because you don't think about things then.
Well,
I'm
yeah.
done.
We need
I'm gonna pass
Captain
out.
America to go back in time to fix all the time loops. Everything can be normal.
I did not mean to rile Mark up that much. It was just really
Sorry,
like a question
don't
of
get me
like,
Mark's
going.
are not cool right now.
oh my god,
They're not cool.
Do you guys have any final points about Prometheus before we go into like our guessing game, a grade,
Um,
and then Covenant?
Just general. This is what a prequel should be. It takes
Yes.
takes serious new direction. For every Alien Covenant, every Rogue One, this is what a prequel should be. It should be somewhat. It can expand the universe past the things we're familiar with the original source material.
Yeah.
That's it.
I don't have any. I've said all my grievances about Prometheus and
Yeah.
what I love about it and what I think could use some improvement. I don't have anything else. Mark?
Yeah, Matt perfectly encapsulated what I would say.
Right.
I think this movie's absolutely brilliant, and I unequivocally love it.
Yeah. All right, guessing game. I did about 30 seconds of research to find some stuff. Matt, hands up, so I know you're not looking up answers. What's the budget and box office of this movie?
Probably budget 100 million, 75 million, and it made 700 million.
Well, that's actually a lot.
Also,
Because that's not right. You're wrong.
This is 2012, right?
Yeah. So we're in an Avengers
80
world.
80 to 80 somewhere between, I know it's a wide range, but somewhere between 60 and 80 million, and it probably grossed maybe 200 million.
The movie cost $130 million to make.
Holy shit.
Which makes sense considering this movie looks gorgeous. And it made $402 million worldwide, $126 million domestically.
That's only 300 million off.
Yeah.
I basically just double what I said.
Yeah. I was actually really surprised considering this is a hard R movie. That this movie
It's not even
so
called Alien Blank. It's called Prometheus.
No, I was thoroughly surprised by that. You already answered. Roger Ebert gave this movie 4 stars and gave it a glowing review. You guys probably already know this one, but for our listeners, I'm going to say it anyways. Ridley Scott suggested that an engineer was sent to Earth for why? Why was the engineer sent?
Jesus.
Yeah, and what happened?
So stupid. I have that in my notes. So I was going to mention that. It's so stupid.
Wait, repeat this again?
Ridley Scott basically suggested that an engineer was sent to Earth to stop an increase of aggression. However, we crucified him, alluding to the fact that Jesus is probably an engineer. Horrible. Dumb.
Horrible.
He said his point for not including that was that it would probably been too on the nose and not the fact that it's a moronic idea.
It's probably one of those things where Lindelof's like, oh yeah, we'll imply that, and then never actually. It's just a classic case of, because that's what they did with Blade Runner too, like saying Deckard is a replicant. It's just him trying to take control over the properties and making it seem like he is like the mastermind behind it. But
it's basically
I guess
like, no, that's not true at all.
Yeah.
I guess that they sort of allude to it with the queen. She's sort of like in a crucified position on the wall.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's really stupid. Numi Rapace was not originally cast to play Dr. Shaw. Who was?
Emily Blunt.
Emily Blunt?
No, I don't know.
Julianne Moore.
That's a good guess. It was actually Charlize Theron. She was originally cast to play Dr. Shaw, but had to
Who's to play Vickers?
Because of scheduling issues, and then she could clear some stuff up, and they were like, "Well, we got a much better actress at this point. We're gonna give you Vickers." Let's see. The Five-Field attack scene was originally not supposed to take place where it did in the movie. Where was it originally supposed to take place?
I think there was an alternate scene where he has different body horror. I think, if I remember correctly.
This is not design. This is just in the structure of the movie.
In the engineer room. Oh wait, no. Oh wait, what do you mean by structure of the movie?
So basically, like it took place about an hour and 20 minutes in, where they're all basically on the ship, but it was not originally supposed to take place there. Where in the movie that we got was it originally supposed to take place?
Probably right.
Does he hang underneath like a? Isn't it like in the ship he like hangs onto like underneath one of the things?
Okay, so basically it was supposed to take place in the engineer room, like you said, Matt, with Wayland. And it was going to be a longer action scene, which I think would have made it even worse.
Yeah, that would have been terrible.
We talked about cinema score a little bit with Hereditary. They gave Hereditary a D+. What did cinema score, which is basically the audience opinion of the movie, what did they give Prometheus?
C minus.
Oh, nice. They actually gave it a B.
Oh wow.
People thoroughly like this movie, which is surprising. That's all I had. You guys ruined the Roger Ebert one, which I feel like Mark would have loved at that moment. But thank you, Matt.
I was so excited that I needed to say it immediately.
Yeah.
All right, grades. Are we resorting back to a plus minus, or are we just doing A B C D F?
Just to make fun, just to make fun of you. We're gonna keep it with straight letter grades.
Okay.
Because Tyler doesn't let us do plus minuses, so we gotta do it with regular letter grades.
Yes, my stuff stands. All right, Matt.
This
Mark.
movie is an A. If you get upset about stupid nitpicks about touching the snake or whatever nonsense, and you can't appreciate like the philosophical themes of this movie, then you should get off of YouTube and not make objectively bad videos.
Yeah. Mark.
Yeah, I agreeing with what Matt said, but sort of extending it. To anyone out there who thinks that objectivism is a good way of looking at film, please abandon that viewpoint as quickly as possible to save yourself any further embarrassment. This movie's an A.
And anyone who watches the videos to try to validate their opinion, you're clearly have no confidence in your own opinion of films. You need to watch videos.
Whoa!
Damn.
Your own that only feed your own ego.
Well, I'm kind of scared to give my opinion. I'm actually gonna give this movie a B. I think.
Okay, hold on.
Right,
we're overruled.
Overruled. I think if you want genuine criticism, I feel like I have laid out my arguments in a decent way. We got the nitpicks out of the way first, and we're
not criticizing like people who don't give it. People give it B's and C's, like people who say it's an objective failure or a movie based off of nitpicks.
I have problems with people who view the nitpicks as a valid criticism. I think there's a difference between nitpicking and genuine plot holes in movies. If there's a plot hole in a movie where it's an action scene and a guy suddenly pulls out a gun he never had before, that's an issue. That's a plot hole. Hey, where did he get that gun? But in this movie, they fall more on nitpicks than anything. Like, why'd they take off their helmets? Well, they kind of state why. Is it a smart decision?
No, but at least they give you some.
They give you some. It's not like they walk in and go, They walk in and go, wow, the atmosphere is cleaner than Earth. And then the guy goes, it's a leap of faith, and then takes it off. Is it a smart decision? No, it's not a smart decision. But they at least provide backing. Hey, why do they touch the snake? I don't know, because they're idiots. They're stupid people.
Let me say a quote from Roger Ebert that I love, and I think it was it was on Siskel and Ebert. It was when they were reviewing, I believe, Rocky. I think Siskel was sort of dogging on Rocky a bit, and Roger Ebert says either it works on an emotional level or it doesn't work at all when it comes to a film. And with the context of Rocky, he said it worked on an emotional level, and he that's why he loved the film. Yeah. I think the same can be applied here, and don't think of it in like, oh, they took their helmets off, it's objectively a failure. Think of it like they took their helmets off, and the repercussions of what they do generates no sympathy for me. I have no emotional attachment to these characters. That's why I don't like it. That's the reason why you don't like it, because you don't have any emotional sympathy for these people. Yeah. It's not, oh, this is a logical fallacy, therefore, it's like,
we can talk about that. A perfect example of that is Alien Covenant, and that's a really great segue.
I was about to.
You guys are on the same wavelength right now. I'm going to step back. You guys got this.
Do you guys want to talk about Alien Covenant? We don't have to go super far into depth, but we all hate this movie. It's probably one of the most disappointing movies of the last 10 years.
It's the most disappointing sequel, I would say.
Ever,
for me, at
Ever,
least.
Wow.
Yeah. And just to segue into like what I was just discussing about in regards to Alien Covenant, when they took the helmets off, and the guy does it to start smoking. Yeah. It's like, what are you doing? Yeah. You're going to get everything that's coming for you, and I'm not going to care one bit.
But they don't even have a line where they just walk down and they're like, ugh. Like in the Prometheus, they have a line like, it's cleaner than Earth. Something's creating an atmosphere. We don't know what it is. In Alien Covenant, they walk down, they're just like, yeah. And you're just like, oh
they take it off. They take it off and they go, well, like,
and then the guy
even Fifield had tobacco in his suit. Like, come on.
Can I read an insane Ridley Scott quote about Alien Covenant?
Oh God,
just to show how little he understands the series. He said in an article by Den of Geeks, he says, actually, it's going to be Alien Paradise Lost, not Prometheus 2. So Prometheus 2 isn't what it's really going to be. You know the poem? I doubt you've ever been through it, have you? The poem's a book, Paradise Lost. It sounds intellectual, but there's a similarity to it, and that's where it stops.
Do you want?
John
Milton's
first off, doesn't make falling from heaven, right?
It doesn't make any sense. He just went on a ramble. 2, I actually looked this up. He changed. He included a xenomorph in Alien Covenant because of the backlash for Prometheus. Dude, he got bullied into changing the movie.
Oh my god.
A respected.
Where do we start with this movie?
Let's start with that abysmal prologue where we get the ultimate character assassination of one of, I guess a conglomeration of David Lindelof and Ridley Scott's creation of Elizabeth Shaw. Yeah. She's killed off screen. You spend a whole movie building this magnificent character for her to die in the most unceremonious way. It blows my mind. And in the whole 4-minute prologue, you get literally all your answers to Alien Covenant. Shaw dies. David's a psychopath. Engineers are dead. Who gives a shit?
I didn't watch the prologue before seeing the movie, so I didn't know that she died. So I was watching it thinking because they teased the reveal for Shaw the whole time. She finds a doctor. He's like, oh, Elizabeth Shaw. She was a lady who got lost on that on that trip to whatever. And then David shows up and she has a picture of Shaw, and you're like, what's she gonna do?
Yeah,
where's she's gonna be? And then she's dead on the table. And it's 5 seconds of footage, and then it's the rest of it. This is the David show. And
it's not. They butcher David's character, where they make they remove all the intrigue of that complexity of he's warring between two sides, and then he's just a psychopath. He's a psychopath god complex. It's full they jump the shark with him. They have weirdly homoerotic scenes with him and his clone, which still
I'll do the fingering.
Yeah, which
that's the one good scene of the whole movie.
No, there's actually one good scene in the movie, and I'll stand by this. It's when the first thing attacks the people on the ship.
That's a great scene. And then
it blows up. It's that horror where it breaks out the back, and it's running, and she slips and falls, and the thing attacks her. That's it's filmed with a handheld camera. I also haven't seen this movie since we saw it in theaters because I never needed to rewatch it. But I remember seeing it in the theater going, holy shit, that was really cool.
Yeah. I rewatched Prometheus 2 nights ago, and I watched Alien Covenant last night. And just from the beginning of Prometheus, there's build up, there's mystery, intrigue going on. With Alien Covenant, it opens with the pods with the ship being in an accident or whatever.
Yeah.
And you get no characterization for anybody, and then all of a sudden they're on the planet. There's the movie lacks any sort of pacing to it at all. It's because I watch movies back to back basically, and it's Prometheus just feels like such a more well thought out script, whereas it feels like Alien Covenant was this kind of rush out the door to make a movie. And
it could have been they could have renamed Alien Covenant to "We're sorry about Prometheus.
Yeah.
Here's an alien."
Yeah, here's it. It's basically the Rise of Skywalker in terms of course correction, where they they looked at Last Jedi and went, oh my god, people didn't like all of this. Fuck it, we're going back on everything. Yeah. But in this one, instead of going slightly, they went back, but then canceled everything else.
Yeah, that's why I have problems with. So I think it makes Alien Covenant a worse sequel than say other pan sequels like The Last Jedi, Last of Us Part 2 is that those movies take the next act or whatever into a new direction, whereas Alien Covenant. Prometheus sets up a lot of interesting things, and then Alien Covenant just goes in reverse.
Yeah,
it's one of those sequels that it just undoes everything that made the original great, and literally just for a rip off of Alien, which is Alien Covenant's kind of unique because it's a sequel to a prequel, so it's kind of in a unique space. But it's just fascinating how wrong we did everything in this movie.
There's also we talked about here's because Mark mentioned it before. The lack of sympathy for characters. Billy Crudup in this movie is an idiot. His character is an idiot. The fact that he trusts David to go downstairs and David's look in this egg that's hatching. And he's like, I'm going to look at this egg that's hatching. What is it? And then died. And you look at it and you go.
This is after he finds the head of his fallen crewmate, and then David is trying to talk to the alien creature.
Yep.
And you he's off. And it's also funny because Billy Crudup is a religious the character is a really religious guy. The point is saying it at the beginning. And so you take the religious themes of Shaw and Prometheus, and it's so well developed throughout the whole movie. And Billy Crudup is the same as a religious guy, but it has nothing to do with the movie at all.
Yeah. It doesn't he just dies being his only characteristic is he's religious and he loved his wife.
Yeah.
And that's it. And then it's just The guy
but then when he dies, he says, "What God do you believe?" And then he dies. So that's like the only significance it has to the plot.
Yeah,
And then sorry, you go.
It's woefully ugly.
It is. I'm gonna say that. Okay, so having watched both movies back to back, the ship on Alien Covenant is so dark and poorly lit. You can't see anything that's going on. There's a lot of use of handheld shaky cam action. The CGI is horrible. The CGI feels like it came out 2 decades before Prometheus. Prometheus is one of the there's like one kind of bad CGI scene in Prometheus, but throughout the whole movie, everything looks brilliant. The facehugger scene, it looks all right. It doesn't look
okay.
compared to everything else in the movie. That's the weakest point of CGI. But again, CGI doesn't really bother me when it's bad. As long as the movie is good, I can overlook it. But like the scene with the hospital scene, like when the xenomorph baby is like breaking his head through the glass, it looks so fake. And when she's tearing at the lady, it looks really fake, and you can just tell there's clearly CGI blood just spewing out everywhere.
Yeah.
And then it lacks the coolness of Prometheus. Like everything feels so slow and meticulous to Prometheus. Whereas Alien Covenant feels like we're just rushing to get to the next thing. We're gonna have bad CGI. We're gonna have poorly written characters. We're gonna have bad settings, and the planet they're on is this generic like wheat field area with a lake. It's so uninspired.
Well, that's
I'm gonna eat my own words here for a second and talk about a little bit about objectivism in this movie, because for me, what I love about, and trust me, I see the irony in what I'm about to say. The engineers. I was like, the main thing for me was like, I want to see more engineers. I want to know what the frick they're all about. And you're telling me that the engineers had one military planet on this moon, and then they had their own planet, Paradise, and it's really just one city on this one planet, and they've been around for thousands of years. Really?
And they all look out at the same time.
Yeah.
What Michael Fassbender's doing.
And like it would have been more interesting. Like, okay, David wipes out Paradise, but like the military ships come back to kill him or something to get it.
Ready?
Like there's such a better story there. If I wanted to go see a fucking xenomorph, I'd go watch Alien or Aliens.
Ready? Watch this. I'm about to argue against you on this one, Mark. In Prometheus, they say that everything there has been on that planet for like 2,000 years. So when they go back to that other engineer planet, there could be a reason why everyone is looking at that is because it's a lost ship that's returning after 2,000 years or so.
But it's still that's
not a boom. They've been around for thousands more years, even after the fact.
That's a good point.
That's a complete fallacy.
Yeah.
Damn. Okay.
Tyler's objectively terrible.
I'm objectively. I have a terrible opinion. No, I remember seeing, because we all saw this in theaters together, and we all left, and we were all shocked. But again, like you said earlier, but the thing that stood out to me of Alien Covenant is just it looks terrible. And I know we already just said that, but I can't stress enough how bad this movie looks.
What I love about Alien Covenant. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Tyler.
No, you're good. Keep going.
Oh, I just loved how it's like David's the bad guy now. But by the end of Alien Covenant, you're like, I don't give a shit about these guys. David, kill them all.
Yeah. Like I think the last scene's gonna be like such a cool turn. Like, oh guys, they're in the sleeping pod.
I'm not Walter.
It's not Walter, and I'm like whatever. I don't care.
Yeah. Is there anyone who really thought David was going to die in a fight to Walter?
Yeah, did anyone think for a second that was Walter? No one thought that.
They're like, wow,
no one. And no one cares about Daniels. Like, who cares about Daniels?
Yeah.
What's her character?
Yeah.
Her character is not Ellen Ripley.
Who survives at the end of Covenant? Is it John C. Reilly? Not John C. Reilly.
That's
the other guy.
His name? Tennessee. The character's name Tennessee. What's his name? It's,
Danny McBride.
Yeah, Danny McBride.
Danny McBride. He survives. Daniel survives. Is that it?
That's it.
So they're both dead.
Well, and also they have the
colonists.
There's some colonists, and then they have they have.
But David goes. He basically goes like, I can't wait to do things with them, and then the movie cuts, and you're just like, okay, you're like, great,
like whatever.
Yeah, cool. Sure, man. Can't wait to
it doesn't matter because aliens exist like thousands of years or like 100 years after Alien, and everything's fine. So we know that whatever David does doesn't really matter.
Do you remember what's great about Alien when they set up like, oh my God, there's that ship out there. What is that ship? And it's like that ring ship from the engineers.
Yeah.
And then we're just like, is it what connect? It doesn't. None of it makes any sense. None of it matters. And I think
like how in Alien, how there's only like 6 crew members and not 30 for no reason at all. So each character feels distinct in a unique way, and there's not some shoehorned in hallway fight at the end.
Yeah.
Just for no reason at all.
I forgot. Alien Covenant doesn't end. It doesn't. It has the end where they're all in the where they're like flying, and Daniel's just like hanging off and shooting it, and then they get back, and then there's another alien fight. So now you're just sitting there, and you're just bored.
It's like a testament to how seen twice. It's like a testament to how blockbusters have changed from Prometheus to Alien Covenant.
Oh damn!
So when you look at it, you look at Prometheus. It's trying to, not to say that there weren't stupid blockbusters in 2011, because there were definitely plenty, but you look at Prometheus, it's trying to do something bold. The producers gave it a big budget to just tell a story that takes place in the Alien universe that has very loose ties to Alien. And when you look at Noomi Rapace's character, like, she doesn't do anything that awesome in it. Like, she basically is almost getting murdered at every second, at every encounter.
Yeah.
And then you cut to Alien Covenant, and it's, you gotta have the aliens, you gotta have Daniels swinging to attach to a ship, swinging along, shooting at the alien while this spaceship's taking off in outer space for no reason at all. It's just, it shows how dumbed down, like, it shows how companies have started to pander more to like the dumbness of audiences who just want the thing. They just want the big action scene. And then then they have this shoehorn and philosophical thing from Prometheus that was set up that really has nothing to do with the movie when you think about it.
Well, I also think
terrible CGI.
Yeah, it speaks to, I think, Ridley Scott was horribly misinformed as to what people didn't like about Prometheus.
Yeah.
I think he went, oh man, they didn't like how there wasn't any aliens in them. They didn't like how there wasn't enough action. And then he went, okay, I'll just add action and more aliens.
I also wonder if the minority, I wonder if the people who hate Prometheus are kind of like a vocal, because you said the movie has a B on
I'm going to look up the Rotten Tomatoes while you guys are talking.
Shocked me. Yeah. I wonder if it's a very small vocal minority people who didn't like it, because it's not like Alien Covenant made a lot of money.
Alien Covenant made $200 million worldwide on a $97 million budget.
But Prometheus made more.
Prometheus made double, yeah.
Yeah, and so Prometheus is an original idea taking place in the Alien universe. People watch it because the trailer was really awesome, and it had
the trailer's great.
The trailer's amazing. People probably saw the trailer for Alien Covenant. It's like, this is just Alien again, and just didn't care to see it.
Well, the trailer, I'll admit, gives away a whole lot. When you come back to it after having watched it, it's great.
Yeah. Which one, Covenant or Prometheus?
Prometheus.
Okay.
But you don't know that when you're in the theater, when you're in 2011, you're like, what is this movie?
Yeah.
It basically seems like based on a couple reviews I've seen already, it's that the movie poses a lot of questions. The movie's like visually beautiful, but it poses too much and doesn't answer enough.
Yeah.
And that seems to at least be like the common critique. But people are just like, people think this movie's like brilliant. I've seen brilliant thrown around a few times.
For Alien Covenant?
For for Prometheus.
What?
Like one review for Prometheus says, in space everyone can hear you try too hard.
Yeah.
I can understand some critiques about Prometheus. Like one I looked up was that this movie is very pretentious. It's like Ridley Scott placing his ideas about
it's
religion.
Pretentious in the sense that that's tackling
but the thing is though, if it was pretentious, if it was entirely faith saves us all, kind of like one of those ideas.
Yeah, it's not that at all.
But it doesn't, and I think that's the interesting thing, is it tackles both. Listen, I just argued before that my favorite part of Prometheus is the line between, is it pro-religion or anti-religion? And I love that about the movie. I don't think that's pretentious in the slightest. But Alien Covenant, like you said, is basically like, they just want an action movie. Let's give them an action movie. And then no one went and saw it, and it was terrible.
Yeah.
And, there's a lot, There's a lot. I hate Alien Covenant.
It's just so shockingly disappointing. Like, I remember Mark and I were so excited to see it, and because I turned 20 that day as well, that we saw it, because it came out May 19th, and I was like, when it finished, I was just so bummed, because Prometheus sets
the worst birthday ever.
So much interesting stuff that is just never talked about again.
Yeah. I'm really impressed though. You know, the word hero is thrown around lightly, Matt, but I think you're a hero for watching Covenant.
It was. I need to shout out Charter on Demand for a second, who didn't even dub my audio right when I tried to watch it. All the ads were perfectly dubbed and everything was fine there, but when I come to watch the movie, like, the audio was like 3 seconds off from like how the movie was playing.
You've been having a lot of issues with audio. Matt sent me a video of his Rocket Man. He's like, "Is there supposed to be this terrible narration over it?" And he sent me a video, and it's horrible. And I'm like, no, it's not supposed to be in the movie. He's like, oh, Amazon included my like audio, like what's it when people are hard of hearing, not deaf, but like the audio enhancement kind of thing, whatever it is. I don't know. You've been having some technical issues over there. So,
yeah, it was weird. It just turned on because I think it was designed for like blind people. It did like because it was just announcing every single action that was taking place. I'm like, this is a really weird decision to have in the movie. And then I realized that somehow turned on from Amazon, and then then I enjoyed the movie much more. It only took me like 15 minutes to figure it out. But
do you guys have any? We've been doing this for about an hour and a half, so we're not going to do what we've been watching section this time. We'll save that for our next review. But do you guys have any final points on Alien Covenant?
Damon Lindelof said that he liked it, but I think he was lying.
I think he's probably lying. I think
he just was like he wanted to work with Ridley Scott again.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably.
Has Ridley Scott had like Prometheus, The Counselor, Exodus, Gods and Kings, The Martian, and then like All the Money in the
Gladiator.
World. I was talking about after Prometheus. Gladiator was 2000. You idiot.
It's interesting because I just found a quote from Ridley Scott saying that he was interested in seeing what Shaw would do when she discovered when she continued to try to find the engineers, and that like he was a huge proponent of keeping Shaw and David alive. So I'm wondering if like going back to he's an old crazy man, so maybe he just changed his mind. It was just rambling, but I wonder if maybe like studio interference told them to make it more like a alien film. It's interesting to see like
absolutely
why they went in the direction they went in.
Maybe they couldn't get Nimi Rapace. Maybe they just couldn't. Maybe she wouldn't sign on for the movie. Maybe she wouldn't do something.
I don't know.
Like
I didn't find. I was looking through and I couldn't find any evidence that said that she was busy. Like I know Damon Lindelof was busy running The Leftovers, so that's why he didn't sign on. But I didn't find anything saying that she was too busy or was working on something else because she came to film the prequel scenes.
Yeah.
So. You guys saw my text yesterday about like this Gucci movie with Lady Gaga and Al Pacino and De Niro.
Yeah, like a stacked cast. Yeah.
I don't know what that's all about.
There's also Ridley Scott has a movie set in like the 1500s with Adam Driver, Ben Affleck, and Matt Damon in it. He gets like solid cast, and then he makes Alien Covenant, and you're just like, dude, you clearly don't know what you're doing anymore, or you very miss like.
Alien Covenant has a pretty solid cast too.
Yeah, freaking Billy Crudup's great. So is Michael. It's all a mess, but yeah.
Yeah.
Matt, that was our Prometheus debate, the great one. Matt, what's our call to action?
Everything I envisioned it being.
Matt, what's our call to action? Where can we find our show?
You can find us on YouTube, which is probably how you're watching this. Spotify, iTunes, everything that Podbean's on. Remember to comment, like, subscribe, comment for Upcoming Fraud as long as it's me.
Or me.
Tell us what your opinions are about Prometheus and the Alien Covenant, because I'm just interested to find out.
Yeah.
And if you didn't like it, we hope we proved you wrong.
Or you agree with me.
Yeah. And then for next episode, we're going to go to Tyler because he has his recommendation.
So my recommendation, oh my God, that one's going to be long too, is there's a 2018 movie that came out called Burning that I watched last month, and I was completely transfixed by it. And now I'm really curious to see what you guys think. Matt, you've already watched it. Mark, you have not seen it. It's a long 2.5-hour movie with a lot of ideas posed, and it's going to be a lot. That one could be like another hour and a half episode. But we're watching Burning next. We're going to give it a few days so I can kind of do some research on it. And I want to reread the short story it's based on by Haruki Murakami. I want to do some prep for this one because it's a lot. It's a very heavy movie to watch. So that's our next episode, Burning. And then after that one is going to be our Nolan series, which is the Batman Begins. And then there's that. And then we'll have the end of the month recommendations and all that jazz. So anything else? Any final points? Any final thoughts?
Prometheus is objectively the best movie ever. Thank you.
I agree.
I am going to get the final word. Goodbye.